Phil the MMA Dude, back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 131, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today, bro? It's been a while.
It has been a while, man. Dad duties took me away, but I'm happy to be back talking fights with you. How you doing?
Doing well, man. I'm glad you're back from dad duties because we've got some fighting to discuss tonight. So here's what's on tap today, folks. First, my opening question for Fight Geek, which is going to be directly tied to the UFC 275 preview and picks. Then after that, we're jumping straight into my favorite section, listener questions and more. So it's a lean episode. It's a mean episode. So Fight Geek, here's where I'm going to start off. Here's my opening question for you. Glover Teixeira versus Yuri Prochazka. Glover is currently a plus 160 dog. Yuri's a minus 200 favorite. Do you think, what do you think of those odds ultimately? Are those accurate?
You know what, I actually, personally feel like it's not too far off. I think, Yuri obviously is the favorite here because of youth, athleticism. I think he's actually a little bit lengthier than Glover as well. So I think, he's the easy betting favorite in this one. I think he has a few advantages that would give Glover trouble. I obviously think it's winnable for Glover if it gets to the ground in certain situations. So, I don't think it's too far off. What about you?
Okay, interesting. I disagree with you here. I think that Glover at plus 160 is a steal. I think that Glover, we may as well just jump right into our breakdown and preview and picks here for the main event. Glover versus Yuri here. But look, I think that Glover, if he can get Yuri down, I think Yuri's going to have a lot of trouble getting back up that round. Yuri could very well knock Glover out, and especially in that first or perhaps second round, I think is when it's most possible. But my prediction, Fight Geek, formally, I'm taking Glover Teixeira and still by second round submission. Am I insane?
No, like I said, there's definitely a case to be made. If I'm making a formal pick, I'll take Yuri by fourth round TKO. I think that his athleticism and youth over time will wear on Glover, and I think he'll get him out of there. But obviously, Glover has passed to victory on the ground for sure. So I don't think it's wild. And like you said, it's actually, if you want to put money on an underdog that's good, I think that Glover's the play there. But still like Yuri personally.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I think just before we move on from this fight, my one thing, Fight Geek, is I saw some of Yuri's fights, from prior to joining the UFC. I believe, was it KSW that he was champion at? I might be screwing that up, but he was at a decent promotion, and I'm just very concerned about Yuri's takedown defense. And Glover's one of the best wrestlers in the light heavyweight division, if not the best, I'd argue.
True, but I think Yuri has improved leaps and bounds in his UFC career, so it's definitely possible that that's something he's got past. But he also beat a guy like Muhammad Lawal over 3 rounds in Rizin, so it's not like he hasn't faced high-level wrestlers before.
Yeah, you're okay. That's true. I've seen it both. Obviously he's not. He does not have an undefeated record.
That was years ago at this point. So he's 3 years better than that when he beat Lawal. I'm not saying he's...
yeah, and you're right. I was talking about Rizin. He was with Rizin prior.
Exactly. So, Dominic Reyes and Volkan Ozdemir aren't great wrestlers, but, they are tough outs. He handled both of them very easily. And like I said, over time, much the way he kind of war on Dominic Reyes, I think Glover's super tough, but he's a little too slow to get out of the way. So if he doesn't get the takedown, I feel like he could be a sitting duck for a lot of the striking of Yuri, but we'll have to see there because Glover is obviously a very seasoned vet with all the tricks, which makes this interesting because I think Yuri has the looks of a future champion, for sure. And
just for the record, I do agree with you that as the fight goes on, Yuri is likely favored if it goes into a fourth or fifth. I said he could. I think he's most likely to knock out Glover in the first. But again, I think Glover's going to get him out of there inside 3 rounds. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, moving on to our co-main event, Fight Geek. Valentina Shevchenko taking on the 19-1 Talia Santos. Talia had 1 loss, and since then she hasn't lost a single round. What are your thoughts on this matchup, and how do you see it playing out?
Well, first thoughts are I love the matchup. I know there's not a lot of critical acclaim for this fight, but I definitely think this is one of the more intriguing matchups Valentina has had in this current title run. So
Yep.
definitely looking forward to the action. But when you really dive into the resume of Santos and the Joanne Woods, Roxanne Modaffari's, Jillian Robertsons, and Molly McCann's, she hasn't sniffed someone of the caliber of Valentina Shevchenko. So while I'm very high on Santos, I just think that the technique and experience of Shevchenko will be plenty in this fight to win a unanimous decision.
Okay, so you don't think Valentina is going to finish Talia?
No, I don't think so. I think Talia is a big, strong fighter. Obviously, in her prime, on a winning streak, challenging for the belt for definitely the first time in the UFC. Not sure if she was a champion prior, but I expect her to be on her A game. And Valentina isn't a known finisher. I know
She's
she
finished
has
4 of her last 6. 4 of her last 6. But you're
okay.
right.
Well, of her 22 wins, how many are finishes? Maybe I'm wrong there, but she seems to be a technical fighter over time, especially against her more technical opponents.
I think she's gotten more aggressive recently, but you are largely correct. Yes, yes.
Well, I think she's, yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of going against my point here when I look and she's got like finishes in 5 of 7 or whatever. But definitely think someone like Santos with her physicality will be in there till the end. Just think that Shevchenko will pick her apart over time and just be too technical to really get her hands on.
Yeah, listen, I think that a lot of people right now are probably listening and thinking that, I don't agree. I think Valentina's going to finish her. And I respect that, and that could very well happen. But, guys, I'm going to go ahead and agree with Fight Geek that Talia Santos will not get finished. So I think the bet here, if you want to have fun, is just bet the over on the fight, right? Just bet the over. I don't know what it is. Exactly. If it's 3.5, 4. But I'd bet the over here. I think Fight Geek said it well. Talia is very dangerous. She's a great striker, but she's even better on the ground. We know that Valentina is amazing on the ground. I would not be shocked, though, Fight Geek, if Valentina drops a round, or even maybe 2. Even maybe 2.
Nah, I don't see her. That's hard for me to see because Valentina is as technical as they come. She's legitimately perfect in her application of her game plan and I don't know. Have we ever seen someone, even her loss to Nunes, that is super controversial? I mean, who has gotten Valentina to fight outside of her character and game plan ever?
Well, Jennifer Maia won a round, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, but she didn't really push Valentina to some depths where she was uncomfortable. It was a pick'em round that Maia may have edged.
Yeah, I mean, it was by holding her down and doing nothing with it. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, all right, you keep proving me wrong here. Maybe my Val takes aren't that strong tonight. But, yeah, Valentina by decision here.
Yep, I agree with you. Okay, so now we're on to Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk 2. Simple. I saw your tweet earlier today. I think I've tweeted about it in the past. Why is this not a 5-round fight?
It really is a conundrum. It makes no sense. The only reason I can think is that
to favor Joanna. I'm just going to say it.
Well, I think does that favor Joanna?
Yeah,
I think it favors her in. I don't think Joanna wants to fight 5-rounders anymore because of the damage she took last time, unless it's a title fight. That's my personal belief.
Okay, I think that regardless, I think it favors JJ just a little bit, to be honest. We know how tough she is, right? I mean, we know how tough she is. So it's going to be real hard to get her out of there. And I think over the course of 5 rounds, Weili's great. She's a great fighter, but she's not, she's not unbeatable. And,
she just lost a decision in a 5-round fight. So
yeah, of course. So I think it favors JJ though.
Absolutely. And one thing that I really think will come into play here is if you really take into account like their mentality, kind of their mental makeup right now, Joanna is uber confident as usual, seems to be at peace with where she's at in her career, the losses, and this opportunity to get another chance at the belt. And, Weili seems a little more fragile to me. She was having a hard time understanding the people booing her previously, coming off of 2 losses. I think she is going to feel a lot more pressure in this fight, and I don't think that she's performed great with a ton of pressure on her. So for that reason, I'm going to take Joanna via decision here.
Okay, and I'm going to have to agree. I've got Joanna by split decision.
It's going to be nip and tuck back and forth, but I just think this week and in this time and place, I feel like Joanna is in a better headspace. I don't know if that's reading too much into kind of how things have played out since their last fight, but Joanna seems super confident as usual, but she seems to be wearing it more authentic this week, in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so at the risk of sounding like a casual, at this point in the card, I think it gets a little bit more hit and miss. What did you want? What's a fight that you wanted to be sure to follow that I haven't named yet?
I think Jake Matthews versus Andre Fiallo is a really fun fight. You got any thoughts there?
My gut is telling me that this is going to be a fight that Andre's going to pull off, but I don't think it's easy. I know that Jake's no slouch. I mean, he's a great fighter.
Been around forever, and then Andre Fiallo is kind of on a hot streak. Hasn't he fought like 4 times or 3 times in like 90 days or something?
That sounds correct. I've got to take Andre. He's clearly, he's got, he's coming off of 2 wins in a row. 4-16 and 5-7. Yep, absolutely. And then he fought Michel Pereira January 22nd. So 3 fights this year.
Yeah, so he's on a hot streak. Usually when guys are streaking like that, things come to mind like Cowboy Cerrone and Neil Magny and Kevin Holland. Guys usually when they're on a run like that, they keep it rolling. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Fiallo here for the victory.
Yep, really quick. Someone that's going really under the radar is Korean Superboy. That's a name you haven't heard in a while. Sungwoo Choi. 10-4 on the prelims against Joshua Kalabao.
You're confused. That's not the Korean Superboy, buddy. That's Sting.
Am I? Oh, wait. Who's Korean Superboy?
Doo-ho Choi.
Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. Oof. Can we cut that out? Oh geez.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Your casual was just
Doo-ho
exposed.
Choi. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right. I'm a casual. Dang.
Yep, among other things.
Okay, all right, let's move along. Brendan Allen is fighting Jacob Malkoon. I got Brendan Allen here. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is actually my prize pick of the week. Brendan Allen under on the significant strikes, and I like Brendan Allen here.
Yeah. I don't really know. Brendan Allen, he's obviously very
talented, right?
Yeah, he's very talented. He's popular, but I feel like they're not really giving him. I mean, I'm looking at his record here. I mean, he's won 4 of his last 5.
Well, he lost that Chris Curtis fight, and that really set him back.
He did, and then he beat Sam Alvey.
He would have won that one.
Yeah, and then he beat Sam.
He would have been on a 4-fight streak with names like Soriano, Robertson, and Alvey. So he's inching his way up. I think for him, it's just not getting too overconfident and outside of himself. He's a young guy who's obviously, really anxious to make his mark. But if he stays within himself, he's very talented.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm leaning Brendan Allen here, unanimous decision.
I'm taking Brendan Allen by first-round submission.
Ooh, okay. All right, any other fight on here, or are we good?
Bontaron versus Manel Cape is going to be a banger. You got thoughts there?
Ooh, that is going to be a banger. These flyweights, man, they're getting better and better. I'm thinking Cape. Give me Cape by stoppage.
Yeah, I like Cape too, but Bontaron is like the exact kind of guy that's going to go in there and just go, let go of his hands and get into a brawl. So this one has fight of the night all over it.
Okay.
Or knockout of the night all over it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, anything else we wanted to cover on this?
I think that's the meat on the bone. Ramazan Imiev's on the card versus Jack Della Maddalena. I like Imiev there. That's the only one.
I do too. And then Dana Batgoral versus Kyung Ho Kang. I like Batgirl. I think he's a pretty exciting fighter. Generally. Ugh. Sorry.
Absolutely. Cool name, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. So, guys, with that, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we'll be back with listener questions and more. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 131, here with my co-host, the Fight Geek, and it is now time for my favorite section of all, and that is Listener Questions!
All right, we got some great ones tonight. Excited to be back answering questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so this question, first one comes from Macer Louie, love Louie, and he says, #AskSplitPod, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but if Glover gets 3 to 4 title defenses, do you think there's a chance that Jones wants a rematch with Glover at either 205 or heavyweight, regardless of Jones's heavyweight situation overall, kind of like Khabib and Oliveira? Fight Geek, start us off.
Interesting. Probably not, because for Glover to get 3 or 4 more title defenses, that puts him at about 45 years old.
You're right.
I don't think John, who isn't really all that excited to come back and fight anyways, is going to come back and be excited for a 45-year-old Glover Teixeira who he beat in his prime. So, yeah, I don't think that's something that would entice John at all, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I mean, I'm going to be honest, Louie. Come on, is Jones really coming back at this point?
Jones feels retired to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the conversation on Twitter in the last 6 months change very drastically. Even the most diehard Jones fans, for the most part, seem very unconvinced that he is returning.
Well, I think the thing people, don't ever take into account is, his personal life was not in a good place for the last couple years, I'm sure. So, he's got to get other things in order before fighting really becomes the number one priority. I mean, if he cares
Well, that's ideal, of course, but is that his
priority?
At
this point, I would hope and pray that John Jones has seen some of the error in his way and is trying to make, amends in his personal life. It seems, at least from my perspective, that would be a good place to start rather than chasing, a title fight at heavyweight.
Well, of course. I mean,
well, I'm just saying that maybe his absence can be attributed to some of that as well.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so moving on then. This question comes from our friend Zan Bando. Love this guy. He says, "Hey fellas, welcome back. Really underrated card this weekend. Here are my 2 questions. 1, if Yuri Prohaska can win the light heavyweight title, does Glover retire? And if that happens, who would Yuri fight next? And then 2, will road to the UFC last long, or is it a one-off in your opinion?" So why don't we start with that second question first? Will road to the UFC last long? Fight Geek, I'm going to be honest. I'm aware of road to the UFC. I see it when I go through the cards on the UFC website. I've seen no one discussing it on Twitter, and I have not been checking it out, nor do I have a ton of interest. I mean, you could call me a casual, me and Fight Geek.
I essentially share the same sentiment. I've seen a couple highlights for it, but there's been literally zero buzz. There's been nothing shared that's made its way across my feed. So, yeah, don't see it lasting more than one season if someone like me, who basically watches this stuff ad nauseum, isn't finding an interest in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. And then as for your second question, Zan, if Yuri,
I would love to see Glover retire if he loses.
Yeah, I think
he nothing left.
I think he would. I'd be pretty shocked if he didn't retire if he lost. I really don't see why he wouldn't. It makes no sense. So, yeah, I'd like to see him retire if he loses. And then if that happens, who would Yuri fight next? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm thinking. I know that Anthony Smith has a big fight coming up, I believe, but I'm trying to think of. Oh, is it with Ankalaev? Is that a real fight? Am I making that
I'm
up?
not sure, but I'm drawing a blank. But who just beat Rakic?
Jan Blachowicz just beat
Yeah,
Rakic
so I think Jan
under
beating
questionable
Rakic could make
circumstances where Rakic kind of injured himself.
well, Jan got the W.
Yeah,
Jan's
true.
the former champion. Jan versus Yuri next would make all the sense in the world. Or all this, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Words are hard tonight. We're back for the first time in a month.
We're definitely more than a little
Rusty.
Thank you. Jeez. Okay. So then for the second part of the question, yeah, I mean, I think that just the last thing on who would Yuri fight next, I think you can't discount that it might be Ankalaev or Smith. I mean, I'm pretty sure those two are fighting, but Ankalaev most
If
important.
Ankalaev knocked Smith out in the first round, maybe, but there'd still be more critical acclaim for a Jan versus Yuri, especially in certain parts of the world if you threw that title fight somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Hard to disagree. Okay, all right, fair enough. So, moving on to our man Eduardo. That's at Landa Crew. Love this guy. He says, "Why are UFC fight nights sucking lately?" Hashtag AskSplitPod. This is something. Fight Geek, start us off. What do you think?
Well, they just appear to suck because we're not invested in 90% of the roster anymore. We used to have all these homegrown guys that we've been with forever and seen over and over and over again, or free agents that are brought in from other organizations with well-known reputations. And now you're just getting a lot of, the Dana White guys, the guys that are being developed in other countries through the UFC facilities. So you're
But
not
hold on, what do
getting
you mean it only seems worse? Because there's no doubt that the overall depth of cards has plummeted.
The overall fighter talent is better than it's ever been. The investment in the fighters isn't there yet because you really only care about 20% of the roster.
If that, to be honest.
I was being generous. I didn't want people to criticize me, but I think it's more like
people are going to criticize you. Come on, every week. Every week I'm always beating you. So come on.
So I just think, I think on fight cards when, for instance, last week's fight card, it wasn't the most critically acclaimed card, but I thought that card was awesome. There was finishes left and right. There was all kinds of drama.
I mean, we could talk about this. We could have an entire episode going into
this.
Was
the MMA... If all that MMA
no, the MMA last
Saturday
week was not special, particularly good. No, I don't remember that. I don't recall that, and I did see the card, so it was fine. Look, I hear a lot of that argument. People say you're hating on the card, but then there are a lot of knockouts or something. Well, then if you're looking for just knockouts or just quick fights or just finishes, you can go to the regional scene. You don't even have to watch the UFC, but the UFC is supposed to be the best fighting the best.
Well, it is the best fighting the best. That's why you tune in for it and you trust that the UFC is presenting the best, even if you don't know who.
Yeah, but there's people like Mousasi that they let get away that are keep winning.
So let me just go over this with you real quick. You didn't think Movsar Evloev bludgeoning Dan Ige was impressive?
I absolutely did. That was okay. So two fight card. The last two.
Did you think Lucas Almeida destroying Mike Trizano was impressive?
Okay, I see where you're going. Yes.
Did you think Kareem Silva, a fighter you've never heard of, finishing Poliana Botello was impressive?
Yes, last week's fight night was a little bit above. It was a little bit better. But Fight Geek, my point completely stands. I don't go back on it at all.
One more. Did you think Askar Masharov and his fraudulent record getting knocked out or not knocked out, but probably his orbital crushed was impressive and was just great drama, MMA style?
Sure, but casual friends of mine aren't going to want to come over for fight cards when they don't know as many of the names. I've seen
Well,
this
that
being
doesn't
written
really mean
everywhere.
anything because those friends only are going to come over for Connor and Jorge, and those guys are.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of, but there used to be more. There used
I
to
want
be
to keep going though,
Romero,
since you crapped
Alistair
on this card.
Overeem, Junior Dos Santos, all of these
Was
big names gone.
was Karolina Kovalevich rescuing her career and staying relevant a worthy MMA storyline last weekend?
Yeah, I see your point about
So,
last week.
so I just named 8 fights that have interesting storylines coming out of them from last night's fight night. So that
Last
should.
week's okay. So guys, Fight Geek doesn't agree that there's been a really steep decline in the quality of fight night depth overall this year, which is crazy. But
I
that's okay.
think the depth of talent, absolutely not. The depth of name value, sure.
Yeah, I didn't say
If you're
depth of talent. I
if
said
you're
depth of
looking
the card.
if you're looking for familiar faces and warm fuzzies, then the fight nights aren't that. But if you're looking for future prospects and elite, hungry fighters competing on the hierarchy of the MMA
Why can't it be
chain,
both? Why can't it be like it was in 2018, 2019, heck,
because
2020?
because there's too many mouths to feed with the growing empire. They need more fighters, more events, more locations, more broadcasts. So that's just what happens.
All right, okay, fair enough. So,
Can we just blame it on inflation?
yeah, sure, may as well. Everyone's blaming everything else on inflation, so may as well. Okay, so this is from Jamal, son of Thomas, at McTavish Clan. Love this guy. What's up? He says, how do you guys see the Dominic Cruz and the Cheeto Vera fight going? Hashtag AskSplitPod. Not sure if you saw that news. Cruz versus Cheeto Vera.
Yeah, I love that fight. It's amazing.
I love that fight. I think that's in a strangely horrendous matchup for Dominic Cruz. I think it's really tough for him this late in his career.
Absolutely. And I think,
Cheeto's going to win.
I do too. The thing about Cheeto is Cheeto's extremely destructive for that weight class. I mean, he comes forward and he puts punishment on you. I'm not sure that even with Dom's style at this advanced age, he can avoid punishment over time from Cheeto Vera. And Dom's not a guy who absorbs punishment well, hence his whole style and career.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for that reason, I think Cheeto eventually marches Dom down, and because it's a 5-round main event, stops him late.
I completely agree with that. I've got Cheeto Vera winning via stoppage in the 3rd or the 4th round. Tough matchup for Dominic. Tough.
Yeah, but one thing to be said about Dominic Cruz, who could be taking celebrity fights and fighting, Uriah Faber for the 7th time, he's fighting true contenders at this advanced age. So bravo to Dom Cruz for his competitive spirit.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. And his longevity, frankly, right? I mean, look at how long he's been around. So, yeah, it's very impressive. Okay, this next question comes from our man, Smart Dan 51, a.k.a. the MMA philosopher. Love him. He says, who are your top 5 greatest fighters in lightweight history? There's been a lot of talk recently with Oliveira's recent success. And his second question is, which fight that is booked for the summer are you most excited for? Okay. Oh, and a third. And which summer fight is the most difficult to predict? All right, that's a lot. Let's start with that first one. Top 5 greatest fighters in lightweight history.
All right. I mean,
why don't you start?
I mean, I still think, to me, Khabib is still the best lightweight. I know the resume can be picked apart, but I still believe on his best day, he has shown enough to beat any other lightweight in history comfortably on their best day.
Okay, we both have Khabib at number 1 right now. So let's move down to number 2.
And now this is UFC history or all time?
This is UFC history.
So if it's UFC history, then you have to go, even though I don't believe his Apex Prime beats some of these other guys, BJ Penn.
Yep.
Resume-wise.
I've got BJ Penn my number 2. Why don't I go number 3? I've got number 3. I've got Benson Henderson.
See, I personally...
Doesn't he have... Yeah, I mean,
I would not put Benson quite there.
But if we're going by title defenses, he deserves to be there.
Right. If you're putting the resumes up against each other... Yes, his resume should be 3rd on the list, correct.
So then at fourth, this is where it gets weird because now I know I'm deviating a little bit from the resumes for sure. Four, I've got Charlie Olives, Charles Oliveira. This is mostly due to his preposterously impressive strength of schedule, especially as of late.
And the
yep,
fact it cannot be overlooked, he's the all-time submissions leader
all-time
in the
submission leader.
history of the organization. So even outside of being a exciting defending champion, he has record-breaking status attached to him. So fourth is definitely where Charles Oliveira.
Not only that, let me just give a few more ridiculous Charles Oliveira stats. He has never in his entire career seen a fourth or fifth round. Never. That's weird. He's fought plenty of 5-rounders. Never seen a fourth or fifth round. And then also, final stat, he beat both Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje faster than Khabib Nurmagomedov did. So that's got to count for something, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how much that counts for. Styles make fights, and, Khabib didn't.
What do you mean that doesn't count for anything? Are you kidding me? Khabib is the most dominant fighter, arguably, that we've ever seen, arguably. And Charles is finishing guys faster.
Yeah, but Charles is also getting sat on his ass in the first round and
Who
almost finished
cares?
before it.
I mean, who cares?
What do you mean?
That's what Tony Ferguson won 13 fights in a row, getting knocked down twice every time.
Yeah. Eventually turns into fool's gold sometimes, so.
I mean,
I guess it doesn't because Charles comes back and wins, but I still.
Justin Gaethje couldn't even get to Trevor Whitman to hear advice for a second round. He couldn't get out of the first round.
Well, yeah, I think that's a whole nother conversation of Justin just going completely seeing red and just losing his mind in title fights.
Yeah. I think he seemed particularly overwhelmed a little. I think he got rocked hard by an opening punch from Charles and never quite recovered.
Well, I was sitting cage side. He definitely, it wasn't the opening punch, but he definitely caught a couple counters that kind of straightened him up, and he wasn't, as clear-headed as he generally would be.
And Charles has that underrated Muay Thai grappling when he's got, he's kneeing you in the face.
He's got underrated knockout power also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so anyways.
So we got to get to number 5. So we both agree there. This is where we get to number 5, and this is where I would take the first non-champion, and I would put Dustin Poirier as the 5th best lightweight ever. And that's just based on the era he competes in.
Disagree, Frankie Edgar.
Okay, if there's resumes, but if you go to Frankie Edgar's career, is beating Gray Maynard more impressive than what Dustin Poirier did in his era?
Yeah, but Frankie Edgar is the champion.
Is beating Gray Maynard more impressive than beating Conor McGregor twice?
McGregor's kind of washed, right?
Are you serious?
Are we not saying McGregor's kind of washed? Are you saying
I'm
this is peak McGregor?
Historically speaking, is knocking out Gray Maynard the same thing as knocking out Conor McGregor?
No, of course not.
Exactly. So I think you could go across the board. Dustin Poirier's wins are more impressive than Edgar's wins, except for the fact that Edgar took his belt off the second best lightweight of all time, and then lost his belt to the third best lightweight of all time.
Yeah,
so I don't know. That's a tough one. I guess for argument's sake.
That's a fun question, though. I like that question.
I'll go with Edgar for 5 since he was a champion.
Okay, all right. So now his next question, Smart Dan's next question. It's a two-parter. Which fight that is booked for the summer are you most excited for, and which summer fight is the most difficult to predict?
Well, I don't even remember when it's booked, but Yair versus Ortega is everything to me stylistically.
Yeah.
So that's the one I'm most looking forward to. Is that in July, or when is that fight?
I don't know, to be honest, but I think it's a little later. I want to say it's a little later.
So that's my most anticipated fight, whether it falls in summer or not. The hardest one to call.
I know what my answer for this is.
I just don't, off the top of my head, I can't forecast the whole schedule, but I don't know. Go ahead. What do
Well,
you
let me
got?
start with this. My first thought when I saw the question, which that's booked for the summer you most excited for, is not really like any of them. And I don't mean that as an overly harsh thing, but usually the summer's got some great fights, and like the biggest fight by far in terms of how the UFC's treating it is like Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier, which, whatever. I mean, that's okay, but that
Yeah,
doesn't,
no.
yeah, it's not crazy good. And
Oh
then,
yeah,
but
Yair versus Ortega is July 16th.
okay,
That's
okay, so you're
summer.
right. You're right. But then, in terms of the summer fight that's most difficult to predict, I've got what I think is a very unique answer. Ready? UFC 277, Nunez versus Pena 2. Everyone's picking
I was
Amanda.
gonna say the same exact
Everyone's
thing.
picking Amanda, but guys, I'm about to pick Juliana. I swear I am. I'm feeling a certain way about it. I'm getting a weird feeling that Juliana's going to do this again.
Certainly carrying herself like she doesn't have much to prove.
She's carrying herself like she's confident. Do you know what I
That's
mean?
what I mean.
Yeah.
She's not overdoing it. She's kind of comfortable in her skin, which is going to make it even harder for Amanda. But I think Amanda comes super focused.
Yup. Okay, next.
Can I say something since we're talking about this? Is
Yeah.
that I know Tough doesn't have the best talent on the show, but can I say that I have actually appreciated both of the coaching styles from these ladies. I think Amanda's style is really productive, and I also really appreciate how hands-on Pena is. So
I
that's actually the
agree.
highlight.
I agree. I have been watching the show. So we've been watching the show so that you guys don't have to. Still wouldn't recommend it. The fighters are not good. That's the main problem. They're just not gonna be long-term UFC fighters at all. But Juliana Pena, Fight Geek, I was gonna say I think she appears to be not only hands-on, but she appears to be a much better coach than Nunez. We have different opinions on the Nunez coaching. I think Pena's out coaching her left, right, and
Obviously,
sideways.
I don't think so. I mean, Amanda obviously is going to be more technical and less, fluff, and Juliana's very hands-on and more of like an emotional type coach. So I think depending on who you are and what you're looking for, I think you can be successful with both of those ladies calling the shots. I'm very impressed with both.
I think that I'm just thinking about like trying to put myself in this, and of course that's funny because I'd never have the guts to actually do MMA, so I'm getting that out of the way. I think that in the Tough House it seems like such a stressful thing. I would want to coach more like Juliana, a little bit more.
So, yeah, I would want someone, especially, when you're not really looking to change your game like Amanda, who is always giving very subtle, nuanced tips. She's not giving you all of what Pena's giving you, but if you listen to the things Nunez really points out and gives to her fighters, they're very, very high-level, nuanced things, and that's what I appreciate.
All right, okay, fair enough, fair enough. I think it's a fair debate, and yeah, I definitely agree with you that the coaching has been the highlight. There's no doubt about it. So, okay, 2 questions left. This next one comes from our man Mace. That's at Louis Hot Balls. He says, I love the title. Should a title fight have the 1 pound weight allowance that all other non-title fights have? Honestly, don't understand why they don't do that already. That's a really interesting question, Mace. Obviously,
Agreed.
a reference to the issue with Charles Oliveira. My guess, Mace, is that the concern gets at that point a little bit like, well, if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk. Like, well, if they allow, it's not really for the life. I mean, I don't know why they have the 1 pound allowance on non-title fights to begin with.
I
to be
don't
totally
either. I
honest.
think it's probably something that was just absorbed from boxing commission and rule sets, so I'm not even sure why either.
I mean, it doesn't. When you really think about it, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
Well, and what it does is,
It confuses things for these title fights because your body's off a little bit. Your body, and as we know with weight cutting, Fight Geek, if you're cutting significant weight, those last few pounds, those are so much harder than the first 10 or 20.
right. Well, obviously, but I think that's the whole point is you're trying to get both fighters to go at the same regimen to reach a same threshold so that they've both kind of kept the playing field even.
But what do you think of Mace's question? By the way, love Mace, best rapper of all time. But what do you think of Mace's question? Should they just change title fights to have that 1 pound allowance if they're doing it in non-title fights? I mean, it does sound like Mace kind of has a point to be. I see where he's coming from.
Well, then you wouldn't be able to say cool things like championship weight.
That's true. You'd have to get rid of the championship weight term. I think Tony Ferguson fans would be upset. I'm sure he would be upset. He loves the champ weight stuff, but. I don't know. Could be a small.
So I mean, other than that, I'm not really sure what it changes. You'd have a couple guys keep their titles, like Oliveira.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next question comes from Jacob Powers. Love Jacob Powers, one of our most loyal old school listeners. That's at Jacob Powers 2. He says #AskSplitPod. It's been a while, boys. Yes, it has, Jacob. He says, but what are your thoughts on who Henry Cejudo will fight on his return? I think Sandhagen or Jan would be good personally. Fight Geek, why don't you take this?
Well, Jan's not the belt holder. I don't see Cejudo coming back and hopping in the hierarchy. He retired as a two-weight champ, so.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same thing.
He's going to want to come back to a celebrity or a high profile or a title fight. I think
he's getting a title shot. I think he's coming back for a title shot.
And he might even, he's been talking about 145. He's been all over the place. So I don't think he comes back and does something conventional like fight, two contenders in his weight class.
Well, one thing, what I have heard, and I believe to be pretty accurate, is that his intention is to return at 135, and I believe even he said return for a 135 title fight, defend once or twice, then challenge for the 145 belt, because he realizes that, frankly, there's no other way for him to get to that 145
right. Well,
belt.
and Dana's pretty much
right. He's already shut the door.
Any of his floated, fight rumors or whatever.
Right. Absolutely. So, is that it for questions? Did we just literally cover everything?
I think we did. Let me just double check. Nothing on Instagram. That was it.
All right. Well, with that, Fight Geek, take us away, baby.
All right, guys. As usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude, and we're at Split_podcast. It's 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week. Peace.